Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajrakacharya Astatara Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura, Text 35. Ya va kachit tvam abale dishtya sandarshanam tava. Utsuno sikshana mananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Yavakachitram Abale Dishya Sandarshanam Tava Utsano Sikshamananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Yavakachit Twamabale Dishya Sandarshanam Tava Utsano Shikshamananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Yavakachit Twamabale Dishya Sandarshanam Tava Utsano Sikshamananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Dishya Sandarshanam Tava So Sikshamananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Yavakachit Twamabale Dishya Sandarshanam Tava Sano Sikshamananam Utsano Sikshamananam Kanduka Kridaya Manaha Yavakachit Twamabale Dishya Sandarshanam Tava Utsano Shikshamananam Kridayamana Utsano Shikshamananam Kanduka Kridayamana. Vaishnavis. Kanduka Kridayamana Rakachitramabhave Jishya Sandarshanam Tava Utsano Shikshamananam Kanduka Kridayamana. Ya, whosoever, va, or, kachit, anyone, tvam, you, abale, O beautiful girl, dishtya, by fortune, sandarshanam, seeing, tava, of you, utsunoshi, you agitate, ikshamananam, of the onlookers, kanduka, with a ball, kridaya, by play, manaha, the mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Whosoever you may be, O beautiful girl, we are fortunate in being able to see you. While playing with a ball, you have agitated the minds of all onlookers. Purport. Demons arrange many kinds of performances to see the glaring beauty of a beautiful woman. Here it is stated that they saw the girl playing with a ball. Sometimes the demoniac arranged for so-called sports, like tennis with the opposite sex. The purpose of such sporting is to see the bodily construction of the beautiful girl and enjoy a subtle sex mentality. This demoniac sense mentality of material enjoyment is sometimes encouraged by so-called yogis who encourage the public to enjoy sex life in different varieties and at the same time advertise that if one meditates on a certain manufactured mantra, one can become God within 6 months. The public wants to be cheated, and Krishna therefore creates such cheaters to misrepresent and delude. These so-called yogis are actually enjoyers of the world, garbed as yogis. Bhagavad Gita, however, recommends that if one wants to enjoy life, then it cannot be with these gross senses. A patient is advised by the experienced physician to refrain from ordinary enjoyment while in the diseased condition. A diseased person cannot enjoy anything. He has to restrain his enjoyment in order to get rid of the disease. Similarly, our material condition is a diseased condition. If one wants to enjoy real sense enjoyment, then one must get free of the entanglement of material existence. In spiritual life, we can enjoy sense enjoyment which has no end. The difference between material and spiritual enjoyment is that material enjoyment is limited. Even if a man engages in material sex enjoyment, he cannot enjoy it for long. But when the sex enjoyment is given up, then one can enter spiritual life, which is unending. In the Bhagavatam 551, it is stated that Brahma Saukyam, spiritual happiness, is ananta, unending. Foolish creatures are enamored by the beauty of matter and think that the enjoyment it offers is real, but actually that is not real enjoyment. Om Jnana Tirandishya Gadanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, when I'm speaking today, I'm speaking to myself more than anyone. When we talk about these topics, sometimes we take a holier than thou kind of position, but as I said, I'll be speaking to myself as well as any of you. I think all of us here have, to some extent, become frustrated with the life of material enjoyment, including enjoyment with the opposite sex. Probably if we were totally satisfied with that endeavor, we wouldn't be here attempting to develop a taste for spiritual happiness. And, it's mentioned in the purport that enjoyment through the material senses isn't ultimately satisfying. Atashri Krishna Nam Adi Nabhavad Grayam Indriyai, stated in the Puranas about the chanting of the holy name. The real pleasure that comes from the chanting of the holy names, which are non-different from Krishna, who is Sat Chit Ananda, full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, that can't be appreciated through the gross material senses. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, in the discussion of the yoga system, it's also stated, Sukham Adyantikam Yatat Buddhigraya Matendriyai. And that means that when one practices yoga in order to realize Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Yogeshvara, the master of all types of yoga, the supreme one of which is Bhakti Yoga. If one realizes that, then one experiences unlimited transcendental pleasure through Atendriyam. Buddhigrayam Atendriyam means through intelligently one chooses to enjoy the pleasure that comes from the transcendental senses and the transcendental sense objects. So in this system of Bhakti Yoga, we're learning how to connect the senses with spiritual sense objects. And we're learning how to connect our sense of vision with the transcendental visual objects, like the deities, the paintings. And we see there's the form of Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. And of course, they're not there just to see with the senses, but to serve with the senses as well. So, although Krishna has structured this material world in such a way that for those who are interested in pursuing material sense gratification, there are the material sense objects. And one can try to pursue them, but one will always find it's limited. You know, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that this kind of activity is limited by janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosha anudarshanam, limited by birth, death, old age, and disease. So one can try to enjoy the senses, but eventually the senses, the material senses, disintegrate. They become weak. They become inefficient. And not only that, there are the miseries that come from, the adhyatmic miseries, the bhautic miseries, and the adidaivika miseries. Those are the miseries that come from one's own mind and body. And then the adibhautic miseries are those that come from other living entities, including other living human beings. We see in the world today that human beings can cause each other all kinds of trouble, whether it's robbers and thieves and criminals, or soldiers from other countries invading one's country, or terrorists, or whatever. There are all kinds of miseries that are inflicted by one living entity upon another. And then there are the adidaivic miseries that come from acts of nature, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, all kinds of things, extreme heat, extreme cold. So there are all kinds of things that interfere with our attempts to enjoy in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are certain yogis or spiritual, so-called spiritual teachers who encourage people to enjoy in material sex life in different varieties, he says. But this is simply a kind of cheating. So, in Vrindavan, I was reading a purport in the 4th canto that Srila Prabhupada was describing. He said the place has become, at least at the time he was writing this purport, he was saying the sahajas, those who mistake material pleasure for spiritual pleasure, they've kind of ruined Vrindavan in a certain way. So much so, Srila Prabhupada said that intelligent people don't go there anymore. I was kind of surprised to read that. But he said, intelligent people ask me, why are we starting a center in Vrindavan? because there's so many sahajas there and who mislead people. I remember once Mukunda Maharaj and I were walking on the Parikram path, and there was what appeared to be a lady walking in front of us and dressed in a sari. But the lady turned around and had a beard and a mustache and said, I'm a gopi, you can become a gopi too, and come with me, I'll get you a sari. And so, but Srila Prabhupada said, actually this is Krishna's arrangement that so many people like that are there, because this is the only place where they can make actual advancement. Because by taking a birth as a monkey or a hog or a dog in Vrindavan, for 1 or 2 lives, they can get delivered from that position and make some spiritual advancement. So the process of yoga, any kind of yoga, is ultimately to control the senses and to focus on the Lord in the heart. And even Patanjali, if you carefully read his Yoga Sutras, says that that's the ultimate goal. And to control the senses, one simply can't restrain them. Param drishva nivartate, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you have to give a higher taste, because simply trying to restrain the senses in a negative way doesn't work. One has to develop a higher taste. But everything that we observe in the material world is a reflection of something that actually exists in the spiritual world. So, yes, there is a search for happiness or pleasure, Anandamaya Vyasat, stated in the Vedanta Sutra. And Srila Prabhupada often quotes that yes, we're pleasure-seeking by nature, because that is the nature of the soul, to be enjoying ever-increasing transcendental pleasure. But that search for ananda, spiritual pleasure, is reflected in the material level of reality as the search for material pleasure. The highest one for the materialist being the pleasure of sex life. And that means engaging the senses like that. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, of course we usually quote the verse about Krishna saying, I am sex life, that's not contrary to religious principles, and that is a fact. Of course, in Vedic civilization, most of the people are supposed to be abstaining from sex life. The sannyasis, the vanaprasthas, the brahmacharis, one order, the grihastas, is allowed. But according to religious principles, so Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, yes, we have grihasta brahmacharis because they engage in sex life only in a very restricted way for the purpose of having children. And in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prajanam asmi kandarpa. among the impetuses for generating progeny, for having children, I am Kandarpa, Cupid, the god of love. So Krishna is that tendency, that desire, if it's properly applied. And this also comes out in the City of Nine Gates allegory of King Puranjana in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. Puranjana represents in the allegory the conditioned soul who is wandering throughout the material world, and he comes upon this city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are the openings in the body for the activities of the senses, the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, nostrils, mouth, and then the organs of reproduction and evacuation. So in order to enjoy the senses, it's stated that King Puranjana within the City of 9 Gates goes out, say, through the eyes to the town of visual sense impressions. So each gate has a name, and the gate for the reproductive organs called Asuri. And goes out to the city of Durmada, or was it Gramaka, I think. And it's called the Arvak Dva, the door for the fools and the rascals. So that's the position in the material world. People are very interested in those lower gates, and they want to go out through those gates to enjoy material sense gratification to the maximum extent possible. So, as I said, that's called the Arvak Dwa. And there's another, if you go out that gate, you can go to another place, and that is the place of reproduction, having children. So that difference is always there. The difference between sex life according to the regulative principles and sex life in an unrestricted way. So we have these choices to make. Krishna has designed things in the material world so that the activity of sex life is intimately connected with having children. But it's arranged differently in different times and places. In the Satya Yuga, Srila Prabhupada explains in his purports, there is very little sex life. People live for 100,000 years, mostly. They're engaged in yoga and meditation, and they're experiencing some higher level of pleasure, so they're not very interested in that kind of activity. In Treta Yuga, people live for 10,000 years, and there's male and female, and they can enjoy sex for their entire lives without any pregnancy, without there being children. Only in the very last year of life, the woman has one child, and that's it. So, And that situation also occurs on the different varshas of Jambudweep. We're in Bharata Varsha. But in the other varshas, people live as people lived during Treta Yuga. You know, they have that same facility. So it's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, in the Satya Yuga, there's very little material sense gratification. In the Treta Yuga, people can engage in sex life with a little or almost no misery. In Dwapara Yuga, they can engage in it with some misery. And in Kali Yuga, people who engage in it get a lot of misery. But in the spiritual world, there's no pregnancy. You know, Srila Prabhupada says in his purports that in the spiritual world there's no sex life as we know it. But even if there is something, there is no pregnancy. So, Srila Prabhupada says in the spiritual world you can have as many children as you want with no pregnancy, nothing. I definitely read that. I tried to do a little research for this, so I have some statements from Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu to back up anything that I say. But Srila Prabhupada says in the material world, everything goes on the basis of lust. I mean, everything that's going on, the airplanes, the cars, the cell phones, everything everybody does is motivated by material sense gratification, principally sex life. In the spiritual world, everything goes on the basis of love. And he said the problem with the material world is people confuse what is love and what is lust, what is prema, what is kama. So we tend to confuse things. And like I said, I'm not here, speaking, to you. I'm speaking to myself as well as anyone else. So we confuse things. What is kama? What is prema? But in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada said, symptoms of kissing, embracing, they're there. But it's on a completely different level, like the difference between gold and iron. Gold being a very valuable metal, and iron being a baser metal. So we have to become connoisseurs in the sense that we learn to discriminate between kama and prema. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj explains that the wonder of devotional service, which is manifested in the love of the gopis for Krishna, is that by not desiring anything for oneself and desiring everything for the pleasure of Krishna, one experiences a happiness millions of times greater. So, to some extent, we're convinced about that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But we could also say, to some extent, we may not be 100% convinced of that, and hence again, we're here to engage in this process of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, to purify our consciousness and develop pure love for Krishna. So I'll stop there. Any? Yes? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. I have one question about this last point. Sometimes I've heard that the word prema is reserved just for love for Krishna. But then I remember this verse that describes the Madhyama Adhikari in the 11th canto, which says prema maitri, that one should develop a loving relationship with other devotees as well. Can you please clarify this?
That verse actually says prema maitri kriko peksha, develop love for Krishna, maitri, friendship with the devotees, prema maitri, kripa, mercy towards the ordinary conditioned souls, and upeksha, one should ignore those or avoid those who are envious. Like sometimes when you're out preaching, you encounter, well, you're with devotees, maybe engaged in some preaching activity, be it book distribution or a festival or something. So you're friends with the devotees. For the people who are coming, you're merciful, you spend time with them. But for those who are envious, you avoid them. I mean, sometimes we may get caught up in a discussion with an envious person. They may come up pretending to be friendly or interested. But then, they reveal their real nature. And then probably best to say, well, thank you very much. I appreciate what you say, but go on to somebody else. I remember once I was at the LA County Fair and the devotees had a booth there. And there were some fundamentalist representatives of another faith, fundamentalist Christians, believe they have the only way. But they would come to the book table that I was at, sometimes be friendly and then reveal who they were and that they weren't really interested. So towards the end of the day, a group of kids came in and they had crosses on and stuff. I said, what are you guys about? I said, oh, we're Satanists. I thought, thank God. But anyways, yeah, prema is actually reserved for Krishna.
First, thanks for a wonderful class. Got my mind thinking too many things. But of the few things that came up, I would just like to say that when one has become transcendental, the only thing he thinks of is giving, as you were mentioning, to the Lord. He's not concerned about getting. He doesn't care whether anyone is going to say something nice to him, glorify him, honor him, give him presents, Christmas presents or whatever. His only concern is giving, because that's where his joy comes. That's where his bliss comes. His happiness is there. And all else of only wanting, give me, you may want something, but it's not for the purpose of pleasure or real happiness. Real happiness can only come the more you give, the more you begin to feel. Where do you feel it? In the heart, and it spreads through the entire body. And you always have it. A person who is transcendental is always transcendental, but the degree of transcendentalness can vary. The intensity of bliss, as we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see so many different variations of transcendental bliss. Some are falling on the ground and rolling around, and some are crying and weeping. Others are shaking and shivering. These are different symptoms of transcendental bliss. And so the point is, these persons, they're not asking to get it. They don't care about having it. They only care about one thing, and I just mentioned it: give, give, give to God. And what is my ultimate giving? My body, my mind, my feelings, my all, my possessions, my property, everything that I have doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to Krishna. And so if somebody steals it, I'm not upset, because it was never mine in the first place. It belonged to Krishna. And so Krishna took his own thing back to another human being. And that's basically the idea. Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the really nice class. I was just wondering, in the point you mentioned about Jambudvip and the different varshas. The other varshas are in like a sort of state, like a Treta Yuga state. I was wondering why, more clarification on this, that is it true that only Jambudvip is experiencing Kali Yuga at this time?
Jambudvip, according to the 5th canto cosmology, is the central island in Bhumandala, which has ring islands and oceans, but in the center is Bhumandala. In the center of Bhumandala is Jambudvip. And Jambudvip has in the center of it Mount Meru, which on the top of it has the cities of demigods. So, according to the Vedic cosmology, the universe is like a big system for circulating souls to upper planets, lower planets, the earthly planets. And for souls that have been in the heavenly planets with their good karma, enjoying the life of demigods, when their karma is almost finished, they come down to the earthly plane again. And that means they come down to Bhumandala. And in the center of Bhumandala, as it says, is Jambudvip, which is divided into 9 sections. One section is Bharatavarsha, where we are right now. And in Bharatavarsha, you have the opportunity to accumulate karma or perform devotional service and get out of the whole system. Go to Vaikuntha, go to Goloka Vrindavan. But for those who are on the material level, if they're really fortunate, they take birth in Bharatavarsha, where they have that opportunity to either get bad karma and go down to the lower species and the subterranean planets below Bhumandala, or they can go up to the demigod level. But if they have a little bit of karma left, they go to one of the other 8 varshas, and until they burn off their good karma that's remaining from the heavenly planets. And that's why they have that Treta Yuga sort of lifestyle. So were very fortunate to have taken birth in Bharatavarsha. Sometimes the demigods pray that they will take birth here because within the span of one lifetime, one human lifetime, we could get out of the whole system. Because even the life of the demigods is not that easy. You know, sometimes the demons, the asuras, take over their heavenly planets like Hiranyakashipu did and Bali Maharaj did. You know, drives them out of their palaces and their nice lifestyle. So that's some, you know, for further details, you can study the 5th canto cosmology chapters and learn about what goes on in the different varshas. Okay, so we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.